Good morning. We're going to give it one more minute and then we'll get started. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Lynn Leonards. I am the Chief Revenue Officer here at Impact Recycling. And welcome again to one of our wonderful monthly sustainable SIPs programs, where we dive into a topic that's relevant to the industries that we work in. So today we're going to talk a little bit about circular solutions and where it fits with sustainability and where the marriage happens between the two of them. And just to talk a little bit about what Impact does on circularity and sustainability efforts with companies. So I thought it would be good to start sort of with a definition of what circularity really is. And circularity is surrounds the meaning of a product or a service that can be renewed and regenerated multiple times. And rather than it actually being wasted at the very end of its life cycle, it actually goes back into the supply chain or back into the actual material that it was made of. Whereas sustainability is really, it's simply a process, and it actually has a very wide definition. And it's really just about a company or people in general really trying to improve the quality of their life by recycling items or reusing items in a way that doesn't put them directly into a landfill, but maybe gives them at least one cycle of life prior to that. So when we think about circularity and sustainability, especially when it comes to manufacturing in general, it's really been around for a long time. So circularity actually started back in the 1970s, which is pretty crazy to think, because back in the 70s, it was just the start of something called RCRA, which is what governed hazardous waste. And there really wasn't a lot of thought put into what circularity really meant and where it was going to take it to, or where it was going to go years later. So I thought it was interesting as I was kind of looking at some statistics and some data over the years about when recycling came about, when circularity came about, when all of these programs came about. And I thought it was interesting to learn that the very first synthetic plastic was actually manufactured in 1907. And I thought it was interesting too, when I was looking back at it, it was made by a gentleman with the last name Bakeland. And if you think about it, I'm sure that maybe we have some grandparents or great grandparents that have something in their cabinet called Bakelite. And Bakelite was really that very first plastic that actually was manufactured from a synthetic manufacturing process. So again, plastics have been around a long time. This concept of circularity has been around a long time, but it really didn't catch up with each other until we started thinking about, okay, well, how does this material actually get truly recycled? And the other piece of data that I thought was interesting was that the very first plastics recycler actually came about in 1972, which was right around the time that circularity started to become popular. And it was actually that plastic recycler was right here in Pennsylvania. It was in Harrison City, I believe it was called. And they actually recycled Bakelite. So right then, in the 1970s, we started to see this concept of circularity come about. At Impact, one of the things that we talk to a lot of our customers about actually is just traditional recycling. And traditional recycling really means we're taking a look at the end of life of a product and trying to get it into another form, at least for perhaps maybe one more use. Whereas circularity is about bringing that to light where it can actually be used over and over again or going back into a supply chain. So I thought it would be interesting to marry two different customers. One is a customer that we're starting to work with, and one is a company that we're actually looking at to model after a little bit with their circular program. And that company is actually IKEA. So if you think about IKEA and where they are today with their furniture, I think a lot of people see that company as a company who has, say, throwaway furniture. And actually, they're ahead of the curve when they think about the way that they manufacture their product and what they want to do with the end of life of their product. So a lot of their materials are lightweight. They are made of products that actually are easily recycled and can actually be easily returned. So if you think about the furniture industry in general, the furniture industry has a lot of struggles when it comes to circularity. So they have materials that aren't easy to return. A lot of their materials have something on them or in them that makes them difficult to recycle. And really, IKEA has sort of already solved for a lot of that down the road. So we just started working with a customer that is also trying to get into a more circular model by having furniture that can be dismantled easily at the end of its life. So a lot of the material that they're bringing in right now, the customer that we're working with right now, it's coming in on crates, in boxes, on pallets. And they're struggling to actually get those materials off the pallets or having things returned to them in a way where they can actually dismantle them and put them back into a supply chain. IKEA's kind of already set up a program for all of that. And by 2030, they actually are looking to be a fully circular company, which is pretty amazing because if you look at some of the statistics, there's only 6% of all manufacturing in the entire world that is truly circular. And IKEA is way ahead of the curve. And I think one of the things for me, having grown up in the hazardous waste and chemical industry, one of the things that IKEA does is they don't always treat all of their fabrics with stain resistance. Stain resistance actually is one of those things that makes material not easily to be recycled. So they've already thought about that down the road. And that's really part of what a circular program is about. So when you think about putting in a circular program for manufacturing, we're looking at everything from the very beginning of a product all the way through the end of a product. So when we start looking at circular programs for companies, we're actually starting from the very end of their life cycle to see what kind of products they have and how we can solve for, say, your low-hanging fruit. So when we're working with the furniture company that we're working with right now, we're actually working with them to take a look at what materials they're using to attach their furniture to the pallets. We're taking a look at the fabric that they have in their chairs and their sofas. We're taking a look at the filling that they have, and we're actually taking a look to see if that material was brought back from the consumer into their warehouse, what could we do with it to put it back into a supply chain? Where in the past, a lot of that material would simply go to landfill. So again, if we go back and we think about IKEA's already thought about, okay, well, if people start returning my furniture, which again, it's just sort of a way of life now, especially with the younger generation, a lot of materials that they buy and a lot of items that a younger generation buys, they're not looking for longevity with that piece of furniture, where maybe generations in the past, they actually have looked for a longer life span of, say, a couch or sofa or something like that, where today it's not quite like that. So a lot of materials get returned pretty quickly. So when we compare sort of the company that we're working with right now to get them into a circular program, they're actually thinking about, on their end, they're thinking about the manufacturing part and the items that go into their furniture, where we're actually looking at, okay, everything that goes into a roll-off or a dumpster at the end of its life and those materials that come back, and how do we help them build a better circular program? So let me take a step back and really explain when we as Impact take a look at a company and that comes to us and says, hey, I'd love to take a look at my materials and my process and put it into a more circular form. We start kind of in a different way where we actually come in and we take a look at the entire lay of the land, and we go through every single process in a manufacturing location to see where materials come in, where materials go out, how much material is actually being used, how much material is being wasted. And a lot of that comes from the fact that we have something called true auditors here with Impact. And with true auditing, it's part of the Green Business Council initiative, which if you've ever heard of a LEED building, a LEED certified building, it's the same type of certification. Our auditors actually are certified the same way. And we go in, we actually take a look at the entire lay of the land, and we start making recommendations on how to get to the end of your journey, whether it's zero waste or a circular program. And we start to put certain small incremental changes in place to get you there. So instead of really trying to change everything from the very beginning with the manufacturing, we really try to come in and take a look at all the small steps together. And we give you a roadmap to get to your zero waste journey. And then we help you move on from there. So with the company that we're currently working with on the furniture, one of the things we're doing is we're actually auditing their warehouse, and we're actually going in and we're taking a look at how materials come in, how they're handled by their handlers, what materials actually going off to recycling today, why it's going off for recycling today. And then we're also taking a look at where it's going for recycling. So that's another part of circularity that a lot of people, I think, forget about when they put programs together. And that's really to take a look at where does the material end up. So it's great if a company can come in and say, hey, you know what, I have this great program and we're going to put all this in these different recyclable programs in place and these different bins, and we're going to ship it to all these different places. But if you really don't know where that material goes at the very end, then your program really isn't truly circular until you understand where the end of life is. A lot of times, unfortunately, when folks say that they can recycle something and it's going to be completely made into a different product, oftentimes they also have waste as part of their process, and you want to really follow that downstream as well if you want a truly circular program. So in the case of like IKEA, one of the things that they do is they actually go back, they take a look at where everything gets recycled, and they're working with the consumer to also bring material back so that it's not ending up in a landfill, or they're not sending it to a recycler either. So this concept of circularity in general can be difficult sometimes if you don't have the right design in the first place. And going back and actually looking at the entire manufacturing process is really important. The other thing we do here at Impact is we take a look at not only manufacturing, but we also take a look at some industries like the food and beverage industry, for example. So when you talk about circularity in the food and beverage industry, they're actually way ahead of the curve in the sense that a lot of their materials can be recycled or reused or put back into composting. So when we actually work with those manufacturers, it's a little different already because their product coming out of raw product is already generally has a circular form to it. So when you talk about, say, the packaging with aluminum, that for, say, beer is incredibly circular. Most of the materials that a beer manufacturer uses goes back into its life cycle. The aluminum can be infinitely recycled. And the wheat, the different types of organics that go into that process, all of those things can actually be recycled as well. So it really does form a closed loop system. The biggest challenge that we see in the food and beverage industry is that that process when it gets to the consumer. So what do you do now to get that material back to a manufacturer so that it creates that closed loop system? So that's one of the things we work with our customers here at Impact, we work with them to really take a look at the consumer side as well. And the material that goes out their door, how do we make sure that it doesn't end up in, say, a landfill or in a different way, that a different process that our manufacturers don't want. So, you know, just in closing here, when we're talking about the different programs that are out there between sustainability programs and circular programs, they really are vastly different in the sense that circular really means that total lifespan of a product, and it's a much usually a much more difficult program to put together. But if you start from some of the more basic elements, it is achievable, but sometimes it can take a little bit longer to get there. Where just a basic sustainability program, which really looks at things that are very linear and recycling things at the very end, you know, is a little easier to get started with and then put it back into a circular program. So, so that's all I have today. Again, we try to make these short and sweet and just give you a little bit of context about some of the topics that are out there in the environmental world right now. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. Our next program is next month. We're going to be talking about some of the other industry topics that are top of mind. And we're going to have a special guest next month. Her name is Marielle Christie. She's our new program manager. She's going to take the topic on next month. But again, if you have any questions for me, if you have any questions about what we do here at Impact, and really where we can impact your circularity program or your sustainability program, I'd be happy to chat with you at any time. So, question about, okay. Doesn't look like I have too many questions. All right. So if you have any other questions, oh, so this land.
We have one that says, how about compensation and treating said, so this landfill is it not a form of pollution?
So as far as landfill being a form of pollution, those are two wildly different sort of topics. Yeah, I mean, obviously putting material in a landfill contributes to pollution in some way, shape, or form. But circular programs really try to make sure that we're not putting anything in a landfill and everything is being recycled back into the supply chain. Any other questions for me? All right, so there's a document that just was put in the chat. So if you want to sign up for that, that'll get you to your gift card, and I really appreciate your time today. If you have any other questions for me, let me know. My contact information is on LinkedIn and it's on the registration page. So thanks again, and I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.